devotion and divine love is an invitation to reimagine everything from the place where it all begins and where it all returns. Love.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. Today, we will be speaking about love's equation, which is potency plus potential. And this is part of the first chapter of Love's Odyssey. So we'll begin today with speaking with Swami Padmanabha about this fascinating and endless topic, which I think we could probably excavate for quite a while. So thank you, Maharaj, for joining us today.
Thank you for joining me.
Yes, we're all joining each other for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, you mentioned in the beginning of this section that's expounding upon the ultimate ethic, where it's not, love isn't just love, but it's love plus potential. And you explain it as a kinetic energy. So I'm wondering if you could, just for the rest of us, mention a little bit what that, how you arrived at that, how you saw that as kinetic energy, and what that means to you.
Well, I'm just using the word to refer not so much even what that means, kinetic means to me, but what it means as a word. So kinetic indicates motion, movement. So that's in connection to love, right? Love is moving. Love is becoming, if we want to use the terminology of the book. So it's a perpetual dance, it's a flow, you name it, you pick the term you want to use, but by nature, love is kinetic in the sense that it's not a static force, that is only what it is and it cannot become any more than that. But again, it's what it is plus potential. And in one sense, what it is what it is plus potential. So what we are includes our potential. What love is, by definition, includes all that love can be. It's not that, okay, here is what love is, and here we have its potential. No, the potential is part of what love is. You cannot separate the two. And that, again, that applies to love, to us, to God, to matter. That's what I've tried to make the case in each of the 4 chapters. So there's a beingness, to love, to us, to God, to matter, and there is a becomingness. And the being includes the becoming. Again, it's not like they are 2 unrelated departments, but to be entails the possibility of becoming. We cannot just put these 2 separate. So, and I think it's a simple point in one sense, but for some it may sound more grammatical than any other thing, being, becoming, and potency, potential. But if we play out the implications of that, that's very transforming hopefully in the best possible way, and giving lots of place for, anyhow, we may talk about that in a few moments, compassion and forgiveness and hope in terms of seeing ourselves and others not only for what they have been or for what they are, but for all that they can be in their brightest potential. And of course, we will also maybe talking about the darkest potential as well, because that's also part of the deal in turn when we speak of becoming or potential, right?
Yeah, that's a huge distinction, I think, for many of us, is to unite those two things that we have as a duality, really, that there is something that is here and the potential is something different from that. It doesn't exist now, but that both of those are existing simultaneously in the present moment. That's a huge way, and I think it really does affect how we approach life and how we see each other. And it's kind of interesting. Like I had an experience of a crazy thing of where I had painted a symbol on the wall, knowing that I was going to paint over it in the same color.
But Teresa painting the walls, writing on the walls, that's strange. I don't know.
Yes, it's
An
one of
internal
my
goal.
pastimes.
Internal goal.
But this, I knew I was going to paint over it. And when I did, I realized that every symbol that I could have painted is already there on that solid wall. It just would have taken, it just takes a certain vision to pull out, to draw out from the possibility of all potential that is already present. Something to engage with. So I had a slight, vision of how potential is already present within everything.
Yeah, so in that sense, we can just speak in terms of actualized potential or unactualized potential, right? But potential is there. The thing is whether it's actualized or not. And of course, potential is not just one thing that, okay, I press the button, it's actualized. There you have it, potential actualized. No need to any other potential to be actualized. No, it's endless, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned, you invoked the apart from sharing with us your beautiful obsession with painting and drawing and writing walls, the notion of the present moment, no? Because sometimes, and the dichotomy some of us may have between being and becoming, like a disconnect between present and future, right? Like becoming is the future stuff and being is the present stuff. But the future is whatever you're doing in the present. That's where it all comes. So the becoming is totally tied to the being that you are in the here and now. So, and I tried, maybe I didn't make that clear enough in my book. Hopefully I did, but if not, here we are trying to do so, which is when we talk about becoming and potential, we have to be careful. We are not here proposing like an obsession with the future to the point that we neglect the here and now, the present moment, because that can also happen, and it has happened and it continues to happen so much in the name of spirituality. It's all about a future attainment, a future place to go, a future relationship, a future experience. And we basically forget about what's going on here and now, and forget to understand how whatever we want to happen, it can only start happening here and now. So yeah, when we talk about becoming, we are talking about being and embracing the present moment for all that it is, as you say, which is, it's an endless horizon of potential and possibilities knocking on our door, available to us here now. And you can only access that in the present moment. And then we can talk about becoming not a spiritual bypassing, but as something really real and committed to reality, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this reminds me of actually you saying it's an endless journey with ever unfolding destination. So
Yeah.
it's similar to what you're saying. It's the destination is arriving at each moment. It's not something out there.
Yeah.
I was thinking one could also question then, what about all these different stages? We aim for a stage like bhava or prema, then we can see that as a destination that we haven't arrived there. But I also remember you often give this example of preparing for a fire sacrifice, where you collect the wood. Collecting wood is also...
Jiva Goswami gives that example, just not to steal his credit, so to say.
Okay, so yeah, collecting wood is also part of the sacrifice. So yeah, I was thinking in one sense that this process is always ongoing. It's our participation, really. Like today, I might be participating in collecting the wood, and tomorrow in the actual putting the wood in the fire, and whatever goes on. And it's kind of like
entering into the fire.
Entering into the fire, yes.
Yeah.
And it's like a perpetual fire sacrifice.
That's nice. So aha, forever.
Yes. So, yeah, I was thinking how the destination is already there, like you were saying, the being and becomingness is present.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's as you say, as you quoted Jiva Goswami, right? Whatever we are doing is already, even if we may not be technically inhabiting this stage called bhava or prem, we are gathering the fuel for the sacrifice, the wood in the forest. So it's a preliminary necessary act for the other thing to happen. You cannot have a fire sacrifice if there is not wood, so to say. So it's part, although it's not part of the official beginning when the fire was lit. It's an unavoidable part. So the journey is already on. And as you say, the fire starts and it's an end. In our tradition, at least, we are conceiving a participation of an eternal fire sacrifice. Okay, you say swaha means I give myself to this, right? So, and many commentators in our tradition, when they especially explain the Gopal mantra, which concludes with the word swaha, they will say swaha refers to Radha. No? And Radha means the personification of love, and love is ever evolving. So the swaha is ever evolving. So yeah, we expect to enter into the fire of love and dedication, and live there forever, right? Acquire a fire-like body, a love-like body, a fiery body, and we are only talking about different forms, or even, if you will, different nuances or different degrees of participation in the yajna, in the sacrifice, in the sacred office, which basically means sacrifice, in the sacred enactment. So yeah, I think that's way more healthy than just thinking, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm in stage A and I'm supposed to be in stage B. And when will that happen? I don't know. Well, someday it will happen magically. And whenever that happens, which I have no clue when that will happen, then the real thing will be happening. But you are neglecting whatever is happening just now. And by paying attention to what's happening just now, that will warranty that the next real thing will be happening tomorrow or later today, by acknowledging the real thing is already happening always. And to some degree, I can become aware and participate of that now. And that will take me to the next level of participation, the next level of participation. And of course, there is no end to how comprehensively we can participate in the dance, in the game of love. So even when you officially attain, as we talked many times, bhava bhakti, ecstatic love, prem bhakti, officially divine love, quote unquote, goal of life, still the experience continues to unfold. And nobody feels I've reached there and I have nothing else to do. There's no more love to be offered. Everyone is too concerned with loving. So they don't even have time to ask those questions, right? When we see what's the psychology of those who inhabit the realm of love, they are not even concerned which stage I'm in my development of love. They are too busy loving, right? They are too busy paying attention to the next unfolding chapter of love and how to participate in that. So and that's a constant absorption in the present moment, even in the eternal present. So, and you can only access that by somehow or other doing the same here in our own situational level, paying attention to the present moment and how to participate in the dance of love as much as we can in our current situation, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
It's interesting also, this example of fire and firewood, because within the firewood is fire.
Mm-hmm.
So the fire exists as a potential within the wood itself. And in this chapter, in this section of the chapter, you describe creativity as an emergence. So it's an emergence, something that's not entirely new, that's not there. It's an emergence of something that's already there. So that fire that's already in the wood is there in potential, and it comes out in the fire of sacrifice.
Yeah. It's basically what I tried to make in my first book, and I'll try to make it subtle but distinction. It's important, in my opinion, distinction. Okay, we have an inherent potential for love, provided we contact the right environment that will kindle that fire-like potential. Because again, it's an analogy, and we can use analogies to prove everything. One point and its opposite. So, so yeah, there is potential for love in a general way and in a specific way, and we need to voluntarily put ourselves in that, enter in that creative, that arena of creativity, so to say, as you are mentioning this idea of creativity in connection to, I think, Whitehead. I'm quoting Alfred Whitehead there from Process Theology, and he's speaking about God as creativity and a creature of creativity. It's an interesting idea. God is a creature of creativity, byproduct of love. Anyhow, we are going some other places now.
Yeah, you talk about this like love's potential, like love's light and like shadow also. And you talked about it briefly in the beginning. I mean, you mentioned humility and compassion. And here, like particularly regarding compassion, you say you say something like it's an intricate dance between love's potential for light and shadow. So I was thinking how that, oftentimes we just see like darkness, shadow as unwanted, and the focus is all on the light. But then that kind of just eliminates the place for compassion. Like there's just one. So here to me, like when I was reading this, what stood out is that both humility and compassion here is arising from a place of fullness, like you say. It's not from lacking. Like and it seems like there's a toxic version of like both humility and compassion. Maybe there's toxic versions of everything, but yeah, here particularly for humility and compassion, it seems like there's toxic versions also. Like we could feel a sense of humility from our lacking, or compassion also for the wrong things at the wrong time, maybe something like that. So yeah, I wanted to see if you have some more thoughts on that.
Well, you just gave a sermon, which is very inspiring. So I don't know if I have anything better to add to that, but thank you for that. And yeah, I'm glad that you brought this theme also. We are talking about potential, and I try to make the point in the book, again, maybe not enough. Maybe another book is necessary for that, to make the point that potential is, yeah, there's a bright potential, and we can talk about it romantically and beautifully, but also there is dark potential. And we can go in those directions, and we do indeed go a lot in those directions, and it's important to explore that, and the shadows and the evil and the suffering in the world, because we don't just want to speak about love in a naive way. At the same time, we will say true love has no opposite. We can only speak about an absence of love, but real love can only become more of what it is. So when we speak about, I don't know, evil in the world, we will say mostly, and I use that expression in the book, evil is missed potential, right? Like misplaced or misexpressed potential. No, as love has no ultimate opposite, goodness, which ultimate goodness is love, so has no opposite. So it's just missing the mark. No, that's the word in Christianity for sin, right? Hamartia. Like you're missing the mark. You're missing the mark. So again, suffering, evil, all the things that we see are, I wouldn't say they are because of divine absence, because love stopped existing, but somehow because we are disconnected from our brightest potential. I mean, we are always connected with some form of potential, because when we express our worst potential, that's your potential being expressed. But again, not in connection to the light. But as you say, in speaking about the light, we don't want to do away with the shadow, so to say. So it's all about an integration, and I will say humbling awareness of how low we can fall, even in the context of pursuing our highest peaks. I'm reading, I would like to share with you something I'm reading these days. This is one of the books by Daniel Ladinsky. So love poems from God. I appreciate he was mentioning to me when I met him, how they want to put love poems for God. And he was like, no, it has to be from God. Though all the poems are compilation from Saint Francis and Rumi and other poets who are supposedly they are writing poems for God, but he was not. They were so divinely inspired that that's somehow coming from him. So there are two poems that I came about these days because I'm visiting, by at least the day we are recording tomorrow, after the recording day today, I'm visiting Assisi, the place of Saint Francis. So there's one chapter for St. Francis here, some poems, and Daniel Ladinsky is kind of adapting them. And he speaks about, very interestingly, about potential, the dark and the light. So if you allow me, I would like to indulge in poetry for a moment.
Please indulge.
So go into our brightest potential first, and then we will sober the equation. The brightest potential is a poem titled Wild Forces. So St. Francis says through the pen of Daniel, there are beautiful wild forces within us. Let them turn the mills inside and fill sacks that feed even heaven. So that's one. Short poems, speaking about our wonderful potential. The potential of the soul is such that even God will feel nourished by what our potential and love has to offer. That's our tradition as well. But then comes the other one. And he's talking here about humility and compassion. Actually, that's the title of the poem, Humility and Compassion. There are 3 lines only. And it says, and then comes the sobering note. Can true humility and compassion exist in our words and eyes unless we know we too are capable of any act? I will repeat it one more time. Can true humility and compassion exist in our words and eyes unless we know we too are capable of any act? Because when I feel humility and compassion, many times it's in connection to someone else's not ideal act. But if I'm not aware that I could be that person, and sometimes I am that person, and sometimes I have to express compassion to myself. So developing a proper awareness of I have that potential as well. So that's a way of integrating our shadow, I will say, of like having the courage to acknowledge I have the potential to do anything. Actually, that's humbling, that's sobering, and I think that balances the equation of love and the notion of potential, so we can engage with that with understanding and compassion for others and for ourselves when we miss the mark. Some thoughts, but you said it all, Sweta, so I'm just mumbling around.
Oh, not at all. Oh my God, that was just beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm really glad I brought it up.
Saint Francis Ki Jai.
Right, thank you. So this will is there anything else that the two of you would like to bring, or is this a good place to wrap it up for today?
I'm going to Assisi tomorrow, so I'm fine stopping here.
Okay.
Me too.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day tomorrow.
Same. See you soon.
Thank you for being here in part 2 of today's episode. And we are so fortunate to be joined by Ravi today. He holds a very special perspective. I think in my heart, I see that has a real unique vision of love's equation, which is potency plus potential. So thank you for being here today, Ravi.
No, that's a real pleasure to be here. I feel like I might be able to grow into my potential with such a lovely introduction. I don't feel I can live up to it, but I'll do my very best.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, why I say that is in Evolution and Divine Love. Love is described as, as being not just love, but love plus potential. And I see that you and what you do in the world really brings this into 3D. It really enacts and gives us a true experiential sense of this with the work that you do with children. And it, by seeing people's potential, it's the very generous view of people. So I'm wondering if you could share a bit with us. Just let our audience know what it is you do with children and what role you think that seeing children's potential, how that affects them in the here and now and in their future.
Sure, yeah. Well, for people who may not know me or the work that I do, I grew up in Ireland. I live in the UK now. I spent most of my 20s deeply immersed in a kind of a spiritual practice as I guess the easiest way is to describe it as being a monk for 7 years. And I think there I learned, I was actually just thinking about it separately from this podcast this morning, like when you spend such a period of time really like giving all of your energy and your own potential and your sort of efforts and I guess your love in a spirit of service, sacrificing, like trying to enjoy the fruits of those activities yourself, has a very profound effect on you, inevitably. And I guess it kind of bakes into your DNA to some extent, that kind of, without questioning it, that kind of spirit of wanting to do good for others and for yourself, I suppose, in the process. So
to give more, to constantly give more.
Yeah, and to kind of not question giving, like it's a kind of it becomes a default where like you want to, you don't always think what's in it for me, like you're sort of, there's a default where you can give quite freely, and so at the end of my 20s, when I kind of, if you like, re-entered into sort of regular life, that was a transition, a big transition, and quite difficult. And it was about another probably 5 or 6 years before I figured out kind of how I could express, I guess, that kind of, love or through my work. It took me some time to figure that out. And in 2008, I started a company called Be Inspired Films, which the only thing that I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to do a business that somehow would have a positive impact. But I also, it had to make money because I was going to be, getting married and all these things. So I looked back in my life, and during my time as a monk, I'd spent 2 years in Africa, and we'd done a lot of work there with street children, and we'd been involved in setting up a school for street children, and we'd made I had filmed and edited a film, and I look back and I remembered that. And then in the in-between bit, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I worked setting up mentoring programs for young people that were at risk of falling out of education, basically. And again, I'd made a film there. So I saw these kind of breadcrumb trail of things that led me to this medium of film as a powerful way to I guess capture and catalyze positive impact in the world. So that was my business. And then through that, we've done so much work with young people, and two notable more recent projects that have really been quite deep in that way. One was I guess it started in 2016, so it's been, well, it's almost 10 years. It was finished in 2021, but it was a huge documentary all about education in India for girls in particular, and how there were so many barriers, whether it was economic, cultural, religious, tradition, culture, all of that. And that's been a wonderful endeavor, both in terms of highlighting the issue, being able to give back all the money that we made from that film to the organizations that were supporting the young people. And then more recently, again, I was back in Africa. I raised money last year for an organization that supports young people in Africa, India, and Nepal through martial arts. And that's a very recent example I can point to where you can really see the potential. We went into these slums, and I've been in a lot of countries where you see a lot of poverty and stuff, but this time it was really shocking. We went in, and it's the contrast. The young people they have huge smiles and huge enthusiasm for life and real warm hearts. It's you can feel it, like it's very powerful. Yet at the same time, their material situation is like, really, really difficult. And just to give a little bit of a taste of it, we went into this one house. So we went to the school, and you're thinking, wow, this is so hopeful and so great and so wonderful. And the charity we were with to see the work was training these young people in martial arts. And I'll talk more about that in a minute around how you can see potential. But they took us to one of the young people's houses, and I like to think I have empathy and all of that. But I was the first person to go in, and it was down these laneways and really just really dirty, and really, no sanitation and everything. And they pulled this curtain back. And so this room was about probably 3 meters by 2 meters. It had no light in it, no electricity. There was about 6 people who lived in there, and the stench just hit me. I went in, and I saw one man there, an older man in the family, who just really did not look well. And I just thought, I care, but I can't be in here. And I turned around and I went back out. It was very difficult. And another girl at the school was telling us that in Kenya, for example, there'd been 15 years of free education for young people. And so huge potential for the country came from those 15 years, because there's a whole generation of young people that now are confident to speak out and challenge the government and challenge corruption in Africa. And hopefully from that, some change will come for the country, for young people. But the current government has stopped the education again. So these kids, if they get to school, they have to pay to get to school. If they get to school, they get a meal. If they can't go to school every day because they can't afford it, they don't even get a meal. And this young girl was saying that people will say to you, I'll lend you the money to eat, or to help your family eat, but then they have to pay it back, through with their body. And they're like 11 and 12-year-old girls. Like, it's really horrific. But the reason I'm sort of trying to show the two sides of it is that when these young people, who maybe in the everyday course of events identify themselves as, slum kids, street kids, very kids whose future is not very defined, let's say, very questionable in many ways. When they put on these martial arts uniforms, and there was thousands of them who got these brand new martial arts uniforms, and they're getting the martial arts training, it's not just about exercise or learning to defend yourself or something. They now feel like, I'm a martial artist, and all of the potential within that for them to grow, and what that could mean for them, and the character development that they could get from that, whether it's discipline, determination, resilience, all of these things that will therefore further enhance their potential in life. A lot of it's to do with so I guess it's helping people see themselves in their full potential. And I love in the book, I think it's pause, the fourth pause, I think, where it asks about imagine yourself or another person that and try and see them in their full potential of what they could possibly be. And so I think this is a great exercise. It's a lovely exercise in the book to do that. I didn't have time to do it just now when I was reading it, but I think it's well worth doing. But so I guess if we can in these heightened experiences, in these examples I'm giving, you know, the reason why maybe there is some kind of love there, or expression of love there, is because we're trying to see others and ourselves in the best possible sense of our potential. And obviously that can go up and up and up, you know, it can be on many different levels. It can be and I think this is the thing that's interesting. I think they go hand in hand. Sometimes in our spiritual circles and stuff, we say, oh, well, that's just material, or then it has to go past that and has to be this, that, and the other. But I think all of the things are very much connected. So when someone believes more about themselves or their potential, all of the dials kind of increase. They may not be as obvious, but like one that goes up pulls the other one up a little bit, and then, you know, so I think they're not as separate as we think. I think, you know, so yeah, I've talked for quite a bit there, but basically these are some of the things that through my work where we're trying to see potential and shine a light on potential, I guess.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And I must admit that it, you know, it really brings me to tears in both the sorrow and the beauty of what you do and what you've seen, and the necessity and the power of seeing the potential in each other. And I really appreciate how just so naturally you connected that with love. And yes, I fully agree with you, Ravi, that these are not separate projects. We don't have our humanity projects and our spirituality projects. We are all one. We are one person, and these are dimensions. But we are this. It's all one project. That love is the core and the basis of everything. Whether, you know, we're talking about it from the angle of the human experience. It's all the same, the same thing. So by healing ourselves and serving each other in ways that address our potential as human beings, then yes, it's going to affect our spiritual development. For one connection that I see easily is how it makes them feel about themselves. This must instill. I've seen pictures of the children that you work with in their beautiful white uniforms, and their smiles are just beaming. I mean, what it does for their sense of self-worth and their own identity. So if we don't feel worthy, if we feel worthless, if we feel like basically a piece of crap, then we are not going to want to offer ourselves to someone. Why would we think that we were worthy of loving someone or worthy of being loved? We wouldn't. Then that's just a person, what to speak of God. You know, so the work that you do in the world I feel has huge impact for these people, not just in the 1 year, the 2 years, the 5, this life. It's affecting their trajectory for a long, long time, perhaps for
Hopefully.
eternity, as the two things are connected. So I so appreciate and value your participation and what you do give.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's very. I really appreciate your encouragement. I think it's always nice to be able to hear some encouragement. I see it as encouragement because, you know, we all doubt ourselves at times, and so it's nice to get feedback. But one thing I wanted to say was I can't remember the exact poem, but Rumi has some poem which is something about we're seeking what we need or something like that. So I feel very much when we talk about seeing the potential in other people, isn't that what we would long for ourselves? You know,
Yes.
that someone would see that in us. And so for me, you know, whenever you know, sometimes on podcasts, you know, people will sort of maybe sort of try and say, oh, you know, you're so good what you're doing or whatever. And I will always try and bring it back to the fact that I am doing work in the world and it's out there in the world, but I'm kind of drawn to it or driven to do it. It is a self project.
Compelled in a way.
Yeah, I'm compelled, but it is a kind of a self project because I'm kind of I'm seeking to be inspired now, you know, myself. So I'm actually seeking, you know, to do things that make me feel like good about myself and like that make me feel I'm kind of trying to taste the fruit of something that then, you know, is good for me and is good for other people. So you know, it's definitely not like I'm such a great altruist or something. You know, I mean, there may be some benefit like from the work, but what I'm saying is that I'm driven deeply inside to try to
Live up to your
seek
own
out,
potential.
yes, seek out and find something that will satisfy my heart, I suppose, in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and for you, it seems for you that, you know, because you mentioned before you were looking for something that can um, express your the love that you have, basically. So it's that brings us, you know, it's like an insatiable thirst, which is how Marsh describes love in
Yeah,
this section also. So it's
really.
like it's a drive to, you know, because this is your potential. You're moving along the threads of love, and you know the fact that you take on kind of villages, you know, cultures and things, to me shows that you speaks to the expansive nature. You know, it's not just a one person thing, but you know, it's that the vessel of your heart, of your love, of your seeking, of your thirst is so large that you take it on in big ways that you really
I
this
guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, you know, none of this is conscious, like, but as we talk about it, what I feel like I'm trying to do is to, I guess, to experience like some of the concepts that we've learned about, you know, like that the soul is in each living entity, um, and that we're connected in this very deep and divine way, all of us. You know, I don't want to just read that in a book. I want to try and do something in life that makes me hopefully taste it or see it or experience it. So in that way, you know, you try to almost throw yourself into situations where that might become real, if you know what I mean.
yeah realized.
Yeah, yeah, realized and sort of seen and experienced. And it's very fascinating actually, because in some ways, so that's where I'm coming from. But it's interesting in some ways, in relation to the documentary, it's amazing how the world is now, and I get it in some ways, but like more and more, there's sort of the lines are being drawn. You know, well, you're a man, or you know, you're a woman, so you know that's not really like that's not shouldn't be your issue, or you're not Indian, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So that can be quite discouraging sometimes when that kind of thinking comes in. You know, because I'm trying to approach it from the perspective where I'm I'm doing it sort of from where I'm trying not to see those lines, if you like. But at the same time, I'm obviously aware of them, and I'm trying to sort of almost bring the dialogue a bit broader so that, it's okay for us all to talk about these things. We don't have to be just from one group or another group, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, more
Yeah,
inclusive. Sorry.
to me, it seems like you're allowing yourselves to be driven by love. And in the process, you are witnessing love's potential, your potential, and also the potential of the children you're helping. And I cannot really even imagine how big of an impact this must be on those children, because for them, this is like something truly coming from God. And it is, because it's like driven by love. So it's not like you were saying, it's not something that you're thinking and like, you're going about it like, calculative like that. Like you want to experience and realize all these things that you have been learning and you yourself are, open to allowing to be influenced by love and God. And that's what you're offering to these children. So yeah.
Well, no, I have to just say thank you both, but you're both sort of it's over generous, like there's an element of all of that in it for sure, definitely. But it's not just that. I mean, I'm a very normal person. I probably have loads of other motivations as well, but there's definitely that component is there within it, for sure. But it's not like that. I'm just some pure person, going around just giving out love and stuff. It's not like that. But within my within the things that drive me, probably at the deepest level, like that is sort of the source of it. But yeah, I mean, it's expressed in my own imperfect, mixed kind of way. But certainly, like at its deepest sense, that's what I'm trying to do.
I think there's always degrees of, like what we are trying to do. It reminded me of Father Richard Rohr saying, how to start, like, being compassionate. Like we start with something that, we've not been compassionate like all our lives, something that we can feel compassion for at this moment, which we haven't felt in the past. And that's where we begin. That's where we connect with God, and that's where we begin, and that takes us forward. So to me, this looks like that, like even if you're saying like, oh, it's not like full-fledged like that, that's not the only motivation, and like, there's different motivations and all that. And I think it's good, which is also like something within this section that Maharaj mentions about like the bright potential and dark potential, so we are being aware of both, the bright and the dark potentials leads to like enables compassion. So so there's that element, and like as you're doing this work, I bet you have this experience of like compassion growing and expanding, as your motivations are also evolving. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's really, really nice point. I think, you have to start, we have to sort of start where we are, do what we can, and through the things that we choose to do in life, somehow find ways to express, I suppose, our efforts in that direction, in the direction of potential. I think back to us when you were saying earlier about when we feel rotten or dirty or useless or broken or whatever, all these things that we could sometimes feel. Then there is a so I guess there's a sort of a virtuous circle that when we're putting in and when we're trying to have momentum in a direction, however imperfectly we're trying to do it, then hopefully it kind of feeds itself and we get more of that. But it's the same on the opposite as well. And sometimes we, in different parts of our life, we might have experienced where, when you're feeling rubbish about yourself, then you often well, we often do activities, or we move in and put momentum or direction in a way where we take comfort in things that aren't good for us, or that are more entangling. Or I remember, my teacher Tribhuvannath, he said the opulence of darkness is more darkness. And I always remember that. It's like, so maybe, that's also part of it. Maybe I'm kind of making efforts to go in one direction to make sure that I, the momentum is in that direction rather than the other direction. I appreciate all your encouragement. I'm just very careful. I'm very wary of a narrative, that or even believing my, or telling the listeners a story, or believing a story that I'm like, I'm this, something that I'm not. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. And I guess I just assume that the other stuff is already known. We know that we aren't perfect. I know that you're not perfect. But for me, that doesn't diminish what it is that you do. It doesn't diminish the where it is. The purity of what it is that you're doing, to me, is not diminished at all by any of the other things that might not be pure motivation. Those things will again diminish over time. And
No, I agree. I agree. And I'm glad. Thank you for that. I suppose, I just feel it's super important to mention it, because you're right. It doesn't diminish the value. Like if you have a big piece of rock and there's a piece of gold in it, the piece of gold in it is still gold.
exactly.
So that is true 100%, but it's not a massive golden boulder. It's a piece of rock with a piece of gold in it. You know what I mean? That's all I just wanted to.
So I'm seeing this now. I can't help it, but perhaps this is speaking about potential. So you focus on the piece of gold, as the potential, and let's grow into that.
Yes.
Also in this section, Maharaj mentions about humility, how that also is a part of love, and that comes with it kind of as a byproduct, that the more we do love, the less we feel we are, because we can see how much is there. At least we get a glimpse of it, and how much of our boulder is a boulder, and compared to the amount of gold. So that is very humbling, and there is a place for it. There is a place for it. So I appreciate that aspect also.
Yeah, I wrote down that piece from the book. It said humility prompts love, but then love deepens humility, and they have this kind of
Like
interplay.
a double helix kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. I think it's nice to be able to talk and share and explore, this, because oftentimes whatever we're doing, we know these ingredients are in there, but we don't always ever really step back and think about it or talk about it. And I think one of the things I've found whenever you get to talk about things is you get a deeper understanding and a bit more clarity often by talking things through. Sometimes you even, while you're just being given the opportunity to reflect and look at it, just the actual words that come out almost give you a deeper clarity on things. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about it.
Yeah, thank you. And I find that that's true also, that because words, they're not just an isolated thing, and language and communication and conversation isn't just a thing. it's conversion. It's a vulnerability that allows growth to happen, and concepts get shaken up and realigned. So
Yeah, one of the things I've been reading recently, or just hearing, I don't know, in various places, is like words create reality. I mean, of course, in the Bible it says in the beginning there was sound, and in the Vedas it talks about the sound. But like actually, like how does anything in our life come to be? Pretty much because we thought about it and we talked about it, and then we leaned into that. We created the idea of what it would be, and then we made efforts to do it, and then some of it happens. So it's almost like language is very powerful, or words. I mean, it's also, I suppose, one of the things that separates us from the animals in a huge way is like communication and language. It's if you want to ring up somewhere, the outcome of what's going to happen is going to be massively dependent on how well you can communicate what you need to say. So it's massively powerful. But I feel also in the process of something happens in the process. It's like also sometimes you see it with stand-up comedians, or even actors in stage. They'll say there's something that happens when you're in the live dynamic between the audience and the stage. Like there's something else that's there, not just the words. Like there's some kind of thing. And also with stand-up comedians, like sometimes they get heckles and stuff, and then in that whole kind of live interplay,
immediacy.
amazing things can come out. So there's just the sort of the two energetic elements meeting. It can give birth to new things.
Yeah, totally. And this is also about creation and creativity, and how it doesn't, it's not that things are created. Everything exists in potential. Like all of that is there. It's just a situation that draws one emergent thing out of another, and creates something completely new.
Which is why I suppose it's kind of back to the topic. It's why I feel drawn into situations where more of that can happen. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's looking for oxygen, or for you want to be in situations where. So I mean, I just, some of the things, so I wrote down from reading the section in the book. The love thrives on perpetual self-discovery. It's never satisfied with a static endpoint. So I feel like that in my life. It's like I don't like the word chasing something. I'm not chasing something. I'm seeking something that is, you could call it what, maybe it almost doesn't matter what you call it, but it could be it's love, or it's connection, or it's God, or whatever. But it's kind of like you're seeking that most essence of what your soul aches for in whatever way that you can, or that you're drawn to. And I feel like that's something, that for me from a very young age has been there, and it's never gone away over the long term. I mean, I'm sure there's been periods where it wasn't as active, but in the long term, it's I guess it's the biggest thing that I probably yearn for, or kind of think about.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, isn't it, to be able to see that, to be aware of that there is a calling from the soul, and not be just conditioned and be completely oblivious of that. And regarding what you were saying, like feeling drawn to conversations like this, that's like bringing like higher knowledge, or helping you evolve, I suppose. And I was thinking, It reminded me of sadhu sangha. You know, like
Mm.
one of the elements of sadhu sangha is uh, association with like advanced people, advanced devotees.
Mhm.
And Maharaj often says that it doesn't necessarily mean that now you have to find someone more advanced than you and get knowledge, but if everybody is even on the same level, but with the sincerity, like, you know, have sincere discussion, that can bring down like higher knowledge.
That's a
That's
powerful idea. Yeah, very powerful idea. Because I think there's a very linear idea that we often have in sometimes in a linear idea of how knowledge can be descend or be imparted or be experienced. And it's kind of like, yeah, like it's like it's sort of, you know, it's going to come from one person, or it's just going to come down. But like, if we go back to the idea of potential, that the you know, the potential, the unlimited potential, it has to always be there at all times, in all circumstances, for any person. Has to be. And so, yeah, it can't be dependent on just one like very specific type of circumstance. And I guess I know that I guess there's reasons why in certain traditions it's very emphasized on being, you know, very kind of exclusive almost. It's kind of like so that people don't just, you know, make up anything and just think, you know, it's whatever, you know, like it's kind of that they're just. But I think once you've got some framework or some kind of understanding, which you've had from teachers and stuff, I think then within that there's so much room for learning, you know, together, or even just in prayer. You know, there's a million different ways in which like I say, with sincerity, that I think you can align or tap into or connect with higher knowledge or higher consciousness. And maybe the other thing is just comes to mind is maybe the way in which we access it is not. We can get really into the idea that it's like books and it's intellectual and it's very knowledge and all of that. But like, what about the idea that we can learn profound lessons through much more simple ways, like, you know, through service, or through prayer, or, you know, or just through our sincere endeavors to want to know, you know.
Mhm.
I think for me, I'll say for me, one of the things that I'm sort of exploring at the moment is that I got so stuck in my head about all, you know, all spiritual ideas and stuff, and so intellectualized that actually I was limiting the potential so much by the boxes in my head and my mind that I had, that everything had to fit into, and like if the jigsaw piece didn't fit into my jigsaw, then you know, it was rejected. Like I was trying to limit it down so much to what I could understand, more than, and like that was the price for it to get in or not. So therefore, as much as you might think the ideas are big, you're so closed and so narrow, and your heart is so closed. And well, I'm talking about myself, but you know, and actually one of the things I'm doing at the moment is I'm exploring a lot of stuff about learning to be in my body and to experience life in an integrated way, you know, where I'm, you know, there's my emotions, there's my mind, there's my body, and obviously my soul is in there, and it's like I'm trying to experience it all as a full integrated thing. And some of that means letting go of having to always be able to tie every idea down and put it into a box and categorize it, and sort of just be a bit more free and open with it. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's kind of something I'm trying to learn at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, guru is everywhere. We just need to have the eyes to see it and learn from, all the different gurus we see. So yeah, it does make sense. And what you were saying about maybe in the initial phases, you need to have like, okay, this person you need to go to, or like, something like that. But yeah, as you progress, I think, you should, I mean, we can learn from like anything around us, even from grass. Isn't that like Sanatan Goswami who said this? Like Maharaj quotes this often, that, if you see the grass for what it really is, you will attain full perfection. So that there is like saying the guru is present in the grass and you can learn to receive full perfection. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And in relationship to that, Swetadweep is following through on that, is that the guru stands before us as our potential. So potential is there also in the guru everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I was thinking too, Ravi, was to me it seems like you're speaking of like a toxic certainty.
Yeah, I think we explored this on a previous conversation to some extent. It's a sort of in the drive for certainty and in the drive for safety, I guess, and sort of a sense of
Security. And
security.
Yeah.
Knowing. Then what happens is unknowingly you're blocking love because you're trying to control.
Exactly.
And it's like, I don't want to use it as it's not a brilliant analogy, but like sometimes, like, you see in those relationships where mostly the man, he thinks he's like trying to love the woman so much, but he's like suffocating her. He's trying to control her completely. And actually then it doesn't work. It's not a healthy relationship. Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, even in material circumstances, it's like that. But what to speak of, if you're love means to be completely vulnerable and totally helpless and bare, and it's terrifying. But obviously equally that's where the potential is. It's so much safer to be standing on the secure shore of the river and saying, well, this river, it's this long and it's this wide and there's this many liters in there, and actually
it's predictable. It's predictable.
Yeah, but it's also so it can appear to be so knowledgeable and so kind of whatever, you know what I mean? But the actual there's no. That's something I was thinking about was, and I actually, funnily enough, do you mind if I just quickly, I knew we were having this conversation today, and I took 2 pictures of something that I saw earlier on today, and I thought that this might be relevant. Okay, there's a couple of bits. I'll read them out and let's see if they fit in. But it says, self-awareness takes work and listening to things you do not want to hear, admitting you're wrong a lot. It's not for everyone, just for those who would rather be happier than right. And then it says, one of the biggest gifts you can give your friends and partners is the ability to see yourself and be seen as you are, not as you'd like to be seen. So I think sometimes as organizations, as that's talking about the individual, but we can fall into this as organizations where we've kind of feel like we've arrived, and then obviously it spills out into the individual too. You can easily pick up that environment or that sense of feeling as an individual that we've arrived. It's not really about growth or potential or a deep inner journey of terrifying vulnerability and love and all that stuff. it's kind of like, no, you start to fall into the doctrine and the dogma and the sort of all of that stuff.
Complacency.
Yeah, it's a complacency on the inner journey. It doesn't seem like complacency on the outer. Like, there's always things to be busy with, so it looks like there's like lots of activity and like, and all of that. But the inner part of it can very easily run dry,
Yeah. Well, one thing it's interesting, what I texted actually Sway to Dweep this morning was, if we don't experience this insatiable taste for love, I think it means we're dead.
Well, we are dead on the inside. I mean, yeah. And like, then of course we wonder why we're lonely and we're sad and all of these things. And we do experience some of those things sometimes, it's like, because it's also like mega intense to be always like, like, that's why I say sometimes, as long as over the long term, the journey continues, but like at every moment, it's not always possible to maintain the intensity of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's always a call for balance and everything. And there's a difference between trying to reach for something out of an emptiness or reaching for something out of a fullness. I think when it comes from fullness, it's a lot, it's natural, it's organic, and the effort involved is simply trying to maintain it from spilling over too far, too fast. And if it comes out of an emptiness, then there is like a struggle and because you're doing something because you should, or you want to, and you really do want to, but it's still something that it's like an artificial imposition that we're placing upon ourselves, as opposed to something that's allowing ourselves to outflow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because I read that in the chapter. I wrote that down about coming from a place of emptiness or fullness. But I think sometimes it's a delicate balance, because when you're in let's say you're feeling more on the empty side, or you're maybe feeling in the diminished kind of sense of thinking about yourself, sometimes it is a bit like quicksand. It is difficult to get out of it. But I think that's why over in some ways, when you are able to be doing as much as you can in a positive direction, it's almost like you've deposited that in a way. And I think sometimes when it seems that it's very difficult to get out of that quicksand, the thing that can get you out of it. So, well, in the very practical sense, sometimes it's just, making sure you eat something or get some sleep.
Take a shower.
Very practical things. Yeah. Make sure you breathe, like it can be very practical things. But in the sort of bigger picture, it's sometimes those deposits that we've made over a long period of time also can help bring us back quite, hopefully quite quickly to the other momentum. But I guess one of the things that came to my mind when I just read that particular thing about from a place of emptiness or fullness is that sometimes it can seem like it has to be some big thing that gets us to feel connected or aligned. But actually, sometimes it is just as simple as just taking some deep breaths and actually thinking of ourselves in our, whatever way works for us, like whether it's like reminding myself that I am an eternal soul, or that I am seeing myself in my full potential. Like even that alone in of itself can shift how you think in the moment.
Yeah.
I remember I heard something recently that someone was at an event and there was, I won't say the person who did this little meditation because it doesn't really matter, but the person was saying, like, say I am, and you say, your name, and you say it over and over, and what does that mean? What ideas does that bring to you? Like, what a person of you, and then you're kind of thinking about like your conditioned nature and your position in the world and all these kind of things. And then they said, now start just saying, I am. No name, no kind of, and like what you start to realize is like it immediately, even when I did it the other day, it just brings you straight into your essence. I am regardless. Like I am beyond like I am Ravinol. You know what I mean? Because when I'm Ravinol, then I've got all my opinions of myself, and am I good or I'm not good, or I might be this or I might be that. But when I'm able to,
Concepts.
yeah, concepts, beliefs about things. But when I'm saying I am, that's almost like I'm now shifted identity into my eternal self.
Yes.
And so just like the kids maybe changed, into the uniforms, and they have a different sort of sense of who they are, it doesn't always have to be some massive big thing for us to just remind ourselves of our true higher nature and our potential. It can be just almost something as simple as that.
Yeah, and one thing that we can, that creates a huge shift is to think, I am a beloved of God.
Mm.
And not just end with I am, but I am a beloved of God.
Mm.
That again brings the reality of love as being the center of everything, that everything orbits around that reality, including ourself, and that we are embedded in a relationship and not just an isolated, independent being, but a being in relationship.
Yeah.
And to open up to the vulnerability of that truth. And I think that the vulnerability is the key to shifting, because it allows ourselves, it shows our willingness to be transformed, which is what I think conversations do, honest ones. And we show up with a willingness. And again, it moves against the toxic certainty that everything is perfect as it is already. It opens up.
I think the thing about, so I think one of the ingredients though, for us to be able to have these honest conversations is a degree of trust, because we've met each other, we know each other a little bit, and there's a level of trust that means I'm happy to turn up here and be completely honest. I tend to try and like turn up like that all the time as much as I can anyway, but it's a lot easier to, like, I can look forward to it when you know that there's a sort of you'll be met with the same kind of sort of intention, if you like. So I guess it's if we were thinking about people listening, like how we can have more of these honest conversations. Obviously, it's great for them to hear people, like on this podcast, having such conversations to encourage them. But what would you say to people about how to have more of these kind of conversations themselves wherever they are? How could they maybe think about that in a way where it's I guess safe in a way?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And I think it is a vital one, because we don't actually talk enough with each other. We talk to each other a lot of times, but we don't talk with each other. And creating a safe space is the groundwork. First, we have to know that we need to do that, and to accept the responsibility of creating a safe space and what that means, because that also means that we are willing to hold that space for another person. It's a giving. Conversation is a giving, both sides. And we do need to create that safe space. And the way we do that, I think, is by ourselves being vulnerable. There's nothing, I think, more inviting for me to be vulnerable is when I see someone else being vulnerable. There's I have this relationship with a raccoon. Sorry. And what I learned from this raccoon is I love the exchange of trust.
Was he come like 2 feet nearer and then back 1 foot and 2 feet nearer?
Well, this raccoon eats from my hand.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So to me, that's when I saw what it was that I loved about this relationship. Is I knew that I could trust that raccoon because that raccoon trusted me.
Mm,
The ones who don't come near me are the ones like, yeah, I don't trust you because you don't trust me. This one, and there was definitely a dance.
oh yeah.
Definitely a dance where we checked each other out. But the more she came closer, the more I allowed her to enter my space. And the more I allowed her to enter my space, she felt comfortable to come closer. So it is this dance where we can't expect the other person to just like be vulnerable and raw and yes, open up and trust if we ourselves are not offering that.
Mm,
Perhaps even as a beginning, let us consciously take the first step and open ourselves up in trust as much as we feel safety, and then allow that dance of relationship to happen. But the
mm,
more that we are able and willing to be open ourselves, the more it is an invitation for someone else to be the same.
mm. And I think maybe part of that is, I'm just trying to think of my own sort of journey, is to allow yourself to let go of other, even if it's just online, like if there are dialogues or interactions or whatever that are the opposite of that, that are really just make you feel awful or whatever, or just like really do your head in, to it's not even a case of judging them, it's just having the self care, I guess, to remove that from your sphere so that you're not getting affected by it, but equally then so then you can make space for more of these other kinds of conversations, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I do think that, sin is described as missing the mark.
Mm,
So if we have love as the mark, which I do believe it is by nature of being, that love
mm,
is the mark, that we always try to shoot our arrow in that direction. We're not always going to make it because we have a lot of stuff, a lot of wind in the way that pushes our arrow away from the mark. And we can expect that. We can expect our arrow is not going to fall near the target.
mm,
But at least if we know what we're aiming for, it's not about being right. It's not about any of that stuff outside of the center of love.
mm,
So what in any way that we can direct ourselves, we can guide ourselves or a conversation towards that, and whatever that needs to look like at that moment also. Even if
mm,
love looks like a white, martial arts uniform, we
mm,
need to move in that direction. And from exactly where we are right now, how can we move and shift towards that real goal, which speaks of in this section also, the fifth goal of life, above, you know, duty, above prosperity, above happiness, above liberation is love. So
yeah.
how can we shift right now in this moment towards that direction?
Yeah, and that's, I guess, bringing it back very practically to where we started. It's like, yeah, each of us in our own situation, our own life, how do we find the opportunities to do that in whatever, little ways, um, each day, each month, or each year, whatever, trying to head in that direction. I don't want to open up a huge new topic, but one of the things that really struck me in the section was, and actually it's Lord Chaitanya said it, from what I can understand, is that love, not God, is the center of reality. And I thought that was amazing because, you know, just like we said earlier, when we say, you know, when I say I am Ravinol, and then because of my name, I have all sorts of ideas and beliefs about, you know, what that means. Similarly, you know, unfortunately, the word God for most of us comes with so much of all of that stuff, you know, ideas and beliefs and guilts and
Daddy issues.
yeah, you know, yeah, you know, so in a way, if you know, just a thought, I haven't worked it out, I'm just going to start trying to talk about it. If we start to try and have the dialogue around God, we don't even know if we're talking about the same thing. Like, you know, we're probably just going to argue, like, you know, and we're going to get bogged down in details and like, you know, no, he's this and he's that, you know, all, you know. Whereas if you follow love and try to be as sincere as you can to follow that, and obviously, you know, you calibrate and you check and, you know, make sure you know it is, then you can't. And I'm not talking about like sort of an impersonalism, but just if you follow it as a sort of a principle,
An ethic.
an ethic, yeah. And I think that was used. That was one of the things. Love is the ultimate ethic, yeah. Then even for a very simple person, you know, you
Even
can,
an atheist.
even an atheist, exactly, you can actually you can follow that principle and be heading in the direction that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the tangible form of love is Sri Radha. So it's not that these things have to be ostensibly, you know, visual externally. She knows who she is. She knows that she is the love in all relationships. So whatever relationship we can have with each other, with nature, wherever, with ourselves, that is an honoring, that is an exercise of a relationship with her directly. So it's not like it is something that is removed or like some kind of mumbo jumbo sentimentalism kind of thing. No, it's the heart of reality. And that the tangible form is Sri Radha.
Yeah, that's a very powerful idea, because it's very easy to, when you get into the theology of things, to kind of try and understand all of these things like love or whatever, you know, in almost externalized into these personalities, and you know, you can sort of easily forget the connection between the topmost thing and the most ordinary everyday thing. You know, there has to be a through line, right? A connection, a thread, you know.
It's the same energy. It's her energy.
Yeah. And so even so if someone is connecting to that energy, knowingly or unknowingly, doesn't even, you know, that's, who knows, like, you know, but they are connecting, you know, with her energy.
Exactly.
And so then that's I suppose seeing it in the terms of its potential. I suppose you could argue it's maybe being, it's not being, I was going to say it's being a bit generous, but it's seeing it in its potential, rather than going, no, it's not because of this reason and that reason, and you know what I mean. It's sort of like that's almost limiting the potential. And I guess don't profess to be in any way knowledgeable, but like about it, but like, if we can even try to have a tiny idea of the expansive nature of Radharani's love, then she's always going to be seeing every living entity in their potential, right? Of course. You know.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Mm.
It's beautiful. What can I say?
Yeah.
That it's beautiful. And it's the same, it is the same way with God. I mean, he knows who he is. He's everything. And that's why he is not an envious person. We don't have to approach him in any one particular way. He knows who he is. Whatever we approach, that's him. And he knows it. So there's no like envy or punishing or coercion. You have to worship me this way. No, however you approach me, that's how I reciprocate. Because he knows who he is. Sri Radha, she knows who she is. And that she is the force behind everything. If we love anything, if we can give of ourselves in any way, that is service to her. That is service to love. And that is taken. And this, I think, is how evolution of our own trajectory happens. Because as Krishna says, I carry, I protect what you have and I carry what you lack. So in this way, any little bit that we can make, any step that we take, that is magnified even in reality. That little piece of gold found within that big boulder. I don't think they even see the big boulder.
Yeah. And it's great to see that they see us in our potential. And I think it's great that we ought to, I feel like it needs to be a switch. This is what I feel, somewhat of a switch where, we can switch on to see ourselves in our full potential. And then we can also put the switch back, not to be out of our potential, but to not get too carried away, like to be to be kind of grounded or
embodied here and now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So kind of like we need to be able to step into seeing ourselves in our full potential and have that as our direction of travel. But I think we need to also be fully embodied and where we're at as well.
Yes, very realistic as to where we are and what is it that I can do right now with everything that I am, with my brokenness, with my bits, with my mania, with everything, my emotional body, my psychological body, my physical body. What can I do right now to embrace that?
Yeah, it's so crucial, right? To be our honest selves. Like if we are not really who we really are, then there is no question of even potential, because if you're just wearing a mask and all of that, where's the potential? It's like we are somewhere here and you're looking at like a different potential based on that artificial mask. So yeah.
Yeah, what you just said made me think that like the current self is the vehicle. So if we look on the map and we go, there's my full potential self, that's what I want to get to. But the vehicle that is going to get us there is this current version. So we have to embrace it fully, because if we reject it, then we're like somebody on the side of the road wanting to get to the other side of America, and we've just burnt our car down. It's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, and there really is no, it's not that we exist already in potential, that there is another us in the future waiting, and we just have to get there, and it's already there. I just have to catch up to it.
Yes.
It's the process of life. It's the process of going through. That is
Becoming.
Becoming. It is the process of becoming that brings us to the future. That is not there yet. It is there in potential, but that potential is not actualized if it doesn't have the going through process, the becoming process. And the becoming process is paradoxically rooted in present being.
Yeah, because we can easily otherwise fall into the trap of sort of always future living, right? Or you know, like the idea of you know, getting to this other place or the spiritual world, or you know, like it's somewhere other. But actually, the whole like if we get there, we're going to get there through the now. You know.
Yeah, it's one of the pauses, probably in this section, where it says, "Are your practices, like current practices, means like are temporary to get to a future destination or something like that, or like you know." So the idea that we are always arriving at the destination at each moment, which made me think about, you know, like our practice, like our sadhana, you know, we're often thinking, okay, we chant like, you know, so many rounds and like, you know, this and that, whatever, with an idea that if we do this strictly till we die, then after our death, we are automatically going to be in that future destination that we always wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so
Salvationism.
it's not, it can't be like that. Like it has to be like, how can we arrive in this moment?
Yeah.
What we can do now.
Yeah. I don't mean to bring the, like it could, somebody might think it's bring the tone down, but it's just to put it into popular culture. There's a guy called Matthew McConaughey. He's a famous actor. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he gave a very famous Oscar winning speech. I think it was an Oscar. And he said, you know, who's my hero? My hero is me 5 years from now. And then when I get to that place, he said, then my hero is me 5 more years from now. So it's always about so you know, whether you externalize that and it's the guru or it's other people that inspire you, but it could also be you, like in the person that you're becoming. You know, because if we're trying to head in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that I see also about the guru and the self is that the guru truly represents the self. It's and the guru is accompanying us in the process of individuation. That it's not just that they dangle something that looks good on the outside and, oh, this is so good, you should come here and taste this. No. They are accompanying us in us becoming our fullest self, not becoming something other than that.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting concept, because so recently someone was asking me, you know, it was in the context, I was with a group of people, and we were doing a retreat, and it was all like, you know, a lot of inner work and stuff. She was saying, like, so when you were a monk, like, what was it like? Were you like, you know, were you like learning about forgiveness and all this kind of stuff? And I just realized I couldn't answer her, because like her ideas of what we were doing, like, you know, like deep inner work and contemplation and developing good qualities and stuff, like in my experience of being a monk, it was nothing like that. There was never even the tiniest thought of anything like that. It was just sort of surrender. Well, I mean, a bit of it, but in my case, it was putting on festivals, but it was kind of like, it was just like, you know, the destination, you point at it and you just drive and you just move and you just kind of like, that's what you do. And you just kind of like, everything else will just happen or be fine. And so I was a tiny bit embarrassed, actually. I didn't really tell her that, but I just kind of realized, like, it's not that there was no value in it. There was a lot of value in it. Like, but there was no language in which I could explain it to her in which she would really maybe be able to appreciate what that was. Like, it didn't, and it also made me a tiny bit sad that, like, in that time I hadn't maybe cultivated more of that inner sort of qualities or thoughts, you know. And so why was I saying that? It was sparked by an idea there. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I just feel like sometimes
Something about like
the guru. Sorry, just came back to me. Why I start where I started. Apologies. Yeah, the guru often can also often many of our experiences of the guru is that it's just like my job is just to engage you and push you to surrender, which means to engage in more service. And of course, you know, no doubt you can learn from that, but like this idea that the guru is actually trying to help you, you know, evolve and turn into whatever you can become, almost seems like the antithesis of, it's almost like it's like you don't need to worry about who you need to become or anything about yourself at all. You just need to almost put yourself into the fire. You need to sacrifice. You almost need to kind of die in a way in the fire of sacrifice of yourself, in the sacrifice of service. And like, sure, you can become purified in that, but there's a sort of a real, there's almost a
Disconnect.
yeah, there's almost a kind of an abandonment of the self in that, almost, even though it's in the language and the dress of, you know, like of service and of, you know, the soul and all of that. But the actual self is kind of being abandoned. It's sort of like jumping off the cliff into the abyss.
Yeah.
You know, sort of.
I can't help but wonder, because this is such a pattern of experience that I hear from so many devotees, that I can't help but wonder if there's an actual benefit where we get something from it that we wouldn't have been able to get in any of the finer ways. And you say it's like entering the, you know, being pushed into the fire of sacrifice. But to me, spiritual life, the whole thing is a fire of sacrifice. But perhaps in the beginning, we are pushed in and the bigger chunks of us burn off. So
Yeah.
that there's a refinement, there can be a refinement and alchemy going on as we progress further and further. But those beginning things, we're not even, at least I can speak for myself, I wasn't at all ready to face things about myself that I was ready to face later on in life. And my guru at that time, all he could do with me was push me into the fire so that the big chunks got burned off. And then as time goes on, we can refine the process. And I don't think everyone has to go through that, but it's been a pretty common thing that I hear along the way.
Such a good point. Yeah, I love that you. It's a really good point, because it's very difficult to, you know, I'm a terrible one for my analogies, but you know, like on a Mac, they have this thing where you can do a backup. They call it Time Machine, and it saves every like setup that was on your Mac, like going back, and you can go back to like last year and see what was on your Mac, right? So in the same way, like it's almost impossible for me, at least, to go back. Like I'm stuck in thinking and feeling about how I am now. So I'm seeing every situation from this perspective. And so even when I'm thinking about back then, I'm seeing it from the perspective now. And I'm thinking, why was I doing that? I should have been doing this. Like, but you know, but you're right. At that time, I didn't know what I know now. I'm well, not the same, you know, I wasn't, you know, probably ready, you know. So it's a really, really good point that even though I started by sort of addressing it as if it was like maybe a negative thing, actually, there was so much benefit from it, like, you know, in terms of maybe the clarity that I may be able to experience now, or maybe the perspective that I'm able to have, or even just, to be honest, to be able to even be talking about any of this stuff was gifted to me through that process, you know, and through that time. so that's something I should really try to remember, because sometimes it could be easy to slip into being ungrateful for that. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I just share a quick image, Sway to Dweep? And then the image that comes to mind, I can't help it, is of a rocket. So when a rocket takes off, the first thing that falls away is a huge chunk.
The biggest part.
The
Yeah.
biggest part of it falls away in the beginning, and it just keeps going smaller and smaller. It keeps refining itself in the density of things, and allows it to propel further into space. Really, space kind of opens up because those heavier, denser things fell away. So that falling away process, and actually it's described in Madhurya Kadambini, like initial enthusiasm can be seen as that booster, but that booster eventually has to fall away and be replaced with something real. But that doesn't mean that that booster wasn't a necessary part of our process.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that. That was
I was thinking that it's also we go with something that resonates with us, based on like where we are. It's not that like, we are somewhere else and like, it's what I mean is it's a voluntary decision, like based on like what resonates with us. So at that time, that's what we needed and resonated with us. And so we naturally went there and we went through the process of growth that was needed, And also in your case, you're actually quite lucky to have met Tribhuvanath. It's like, I mean, he was a special soul for sure. So yeah.
no,
But
you're
like,
right.
for all of us really, like, I think even though we look back and see like, oh, why didn't we start here? Like all these beautiful things we are exploring, like, at this time we didn't know before, but all comes at the right time, I believe.
No, absolutely. And I think part of what's important, I've been meaning to do it for a while. I haven't really done it fully yet, but like little bits of things like this are helping me to do it, is to kind of go back and well, I'm actually writing a lot of research has been done about for a book about Tribhuvanath, but I've been asked to finish to write it, and so it will be a massive process, and it will be a real vulnerable, painful, healing experience. Like I'm excited about it, but I'm very. When he passed away in 2001, I almost couldn't even think about him for 15 years or talk about him. It was just so painful. And then slowly, but it's a very charged relationship. Like, you're right. When you were speaking back to Ras, I was just thinking that's the extraordinary thing about Tribhuvanath was he had that enthusiasm, that booster, and then he spent a short time away from the movement, and he came back, and he had it again. Like he always had it; it never went away. Just exactly like the day when he joined, and it's kind of mind-boggling in a way, because obviously it wasn't the immature thing after so many years, but it was sort of, I guess maybe it was the ripened version of the same thing. And so there was so much love and depth to him, yet at the same time, like he really pushed me so hard in that time. And like it is important that I kind of make sense of that, and like that perspective that actually, was burning away so much stuff, which is true, was there. But there's like, it's kind of like there's a lot of emotions, there's kind of overwhelmingly it's love, but like any, I guess, exciting love affair, there's a lot of like it's not just kind of a peaceful thing. Like there's a lot of energy in there. There's a lot of like fire and kind of, huh?
It's volcanic.
It's volcanic. And like there's been times where then when I have spoken about him or you know, and I've just become massively overwhelmed with emotions, you know, and so yeah, there's a lot to go back and sort of look at there, but I love that perspective that it was hard, it was difficult, it was all of those things, but it was needed, you know, it was needed. And then that way you can still, you're not negating any of the difficulties of it, but you just can see it from a much more grateful perspective, you know.
Yeah, somehow there is this like idea that like love means peace, you know, like this inclination
Da-di-da-di-da-di-da.
Yeah.
inclination towards like wanting peace. Like
Yeah.
somehow it's equated, you know, love means peace, something like that. But I don't think that's the case, you know. There's
Yeah.
always like turbulence, and especially like, you know, in our process going through this anartha nivriti and like, you know, uh, like shadow work and all of that. How is that a peaceful process?
No, it's not. But there's a sort of there's sometimes I hope you don't mind. I'll just say a few things on this if you can while it's just come to me. I know we've been talking for a while, but I struggled a lot because Tribhuvan very clearly was, you know, the person I met who I wouldn't have taken up spiritual life in the way that I did. I would have so happily come along on a Sunday to the temple and just been I'd call it like an armchair philosopher, you know. I would have been very comfortable there. I would have thought, yeah, this is great. We get to talk about all these things and it's so great, cosmic and all that, and just carried on, you know. So, but because I met him and I was very attracted to him and he offered me the chance to travel with him, I felt like I couldn't, like, that was very compelling to me. So that's the thing really that, you know, made me take that leap and jump off that cliff, if you like. And so, yeah, I am very grateful for it. So the relationship was very clear. Like, it was very strong. It was very intense. And so he was very clearly and obviously in the natural course of things, my teacher, my guru, right? But he never did accept any disciples. And so in the backdrop of, you know, it was ISKCON, it was all kind of very painted out what the path should look like, what it should be. You know, you should just, you know, you find the guru and, you know, he gives you the initiation and, you know, this is what it's going to be like. You're going to have, you know, you're going to see him a couple of times a year. You know, you're going to ask humbly for a little bit of a thing and he'll tell you what it is and you'll shake your head and go, oh, thank you so much. And then you're going to go for the once a year, you know, big kind of Vyasa Puja or whatever it's like. And that's what it should be. Right. And that wasn't what it was like for me. And
I don't know why I keep getting this image of like a Bollywood musical hearing you speak about the ideal.
And everyone jumps up and starts doing the dance and going, Jai Gurudev, you know. Yeah, of course. That's kind of like it's sort of almost like a brochure of this is what you're going to get. You know, you sign up and this is what you're going to get. And it wasn't like that. And I knew in my heart, like, it was real and it was great. But it, you know, like, we're all influenced by the sort of what you're seeing everyone else doing and like what do you think it's supposed to be like, right? And it was so tormenting to me. And I remember I asked him to initiate me, and he said no, he wasn't going to initiate anybody. And many other people asked him later, and he never did it. And sometimes, like, so if you think about the yearning or the fire or that heart, that like that wanting acceptance, like wanting to have the formal acceptance, right? It was burning in me, you know, and at the same time I'm giving everything, right? So it was a so I suppose the story I'm going to tell you kind of like resolves it to a degree. So one time we were in Birmingham Temple, which was a house, and my room where I slept was in the front in this little office, and up the steps and over there was his bedroom where he stayed when he used to come. And you know, he would just sleep on the floor in the middle of all of his stuff. And on his wall, there was a picture of Krishna. It was probably a picture of Prabhupada, but there was definitely a picture of Krishna. And he used to pace up and down really fast, doing his rounds really intensely. And anyway, so I went in and I had these things on my mind and I was trying to ask him. And, I think it was something to do with like the guru. And I was saying, but like, what is it? Is it this? Is it this? And he just, he kind of snapped at me and he pointed at Krishna. He said, it's Krishna who will take you back. It's Krishna who ultimately will deliver you or anyone. And I can't remember all the words. It's such a long time ago, but it was very intense. And then I was like, I sort of said something to him that kind of maybe challenged him, or I overstepped the mark a bit, like, and he got angry. He got angry, really angry, and shouted at me. And then I left and I went down and I was just rolling out my sleeping bag and I was about to take rest. And then he came down and I'm getting emotional, but all right. He came down and he paid his obeisances to me. And he said, I'm sorry. And I said, oh, it's okay. I said, that was the worst one yet in terms of an argument. And he said, yeah, he said, or it could be the best one. Depends how you look at it. And it was just, that's the thing that I appreciate the most about it. Whatever it wasn't, it was completely real, and yeah, it was. And he was obviously, real, it was personal and loving, even though it was, at the same time, he was a very dynamic, demanding person. But I just never forget that in this context of love, it's like, I sort of thought as like that was a negative thing because like I didn't behave in the perfect way that I should have behaved or this or that. But it wasn't about that. It was about it was love, and
And there is no duality in love, good or bad. Like
it's all in there.
Yeah, anything can come out of it. It is always a surprise.
Yeah.
And it is also the misconception we have, that like guru means it has to be a Diksha guru, especially in ISKCON, there's so much emphasis on Diksha guru that like, if people even like it's a common, even just so normal to ask like, who's your guru? And expected to answer like your Diksha guru, so like it's only Diksha guru and like no emphasis on Shiksha guru. Although like in our parampara, it's all if you see, it's a Shiksha parampara and that seems to be the most important thing, So to me, it sounds like even in your relationship with Tribhuvanath, you just naturally had it, like unspoken, but it was present. The love was there, that relationship was there, this beautiful interaction that you shared. It's just like, wow, I'm sure it brought all of us to tears here. And yeah, to me, like you had it there, like the guru disciple relationship was just so real. It was present.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like on another occasion, he said it to me as well. He said, like, what's the problem? He said, I'm accepting you, I'm engaging you, what's missing? And I guess for me, it was that sort of almost conceptual or social pressure that like, or this idea that's, I don't know if there's any like philosophical like background to it. Maybe there is. Even if there is, I couldn't care less, to be honest, because the principle of love, I suppose, has to trump everything else, because it's very real. Like so many people have, the stamp and the guru and the fire sacrifice and all of that, but that, and I can't speak for them, but like that doesn't mean that there is love even. So like that, love is the central thing. It's like, you know, it's like I feel very blessed because even now to be able to have those emotions, like that, it's extremely real. And but it did bother me. It troubled me for a long time that it wasn't formalized. But then it doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, maybe caste thinking would say it does, that some magical thing happens in that fire sacrifice, like, you know, like all of a sudden something happens that isn't there otherwise. But if love trumps everything, then surely, yeah, the fire sacrifice might have some effect and it might burn off some karma or might do this or that or the other, whatever it is. But it can't trump actual real love.
Yeah, I agree. And everything you said is so beautiful. And I really appreciate your honest and open sharing. And two things that come to me is the fire sacrifice and all that, the magical thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, there is something, I think, also in ritualizing, in a ritual and having a ritual, there's a power in that,
Yeah.
a social observance. But beyond that, especially when there's a particular guru who has a certain vision in relationship with a particular student who is who is at a certain place where it's time to learn that there is more than ritual, that there's something way more substantial than the rubber stamping.
Mm.
That yes, you could have gotten that with someone else, and like you said, be all happy about it. But the substance, if it's missing the substance, so there are those people who live in substance and who draw us up to that level and give us a real experiential understanding of what this all means, what guru means, what disciple means, what love means beyond the rubber stamping and social acceptance, what belonging means. How do we belong in real substantial ways? Because there's going to come a time when we are physically separated from each other. Death will come, separate us. How do we still maintain that connection in those moments?
Mm.
Rubber stamping isn't going to make it.
No, and I never did find it. I couldn't. There was nothing ever just came anywhere near it for me. So I just, yeah. And I suppose that maybe that was part of maybe that was foolish, like thinking that I needed to look for it somewhere else. You know, it is what it is. You know, people can think it may not be whatever else they might think I need, but like I just know that thing that I had is very real and it's still there. And I'm quite okay with that. That just like you said, that maybe at that certain point in time we need a certain thing for a certain period of time. You know, for me that's what happened. That's the connection that was made, and it is what it is. And but it's there's still a lot of depth to be explored in it. I think I kind of paused it for a long time. I mean, not that it went away, but just because it was so painful.
Yeah, it's painful. Sure.
You know.
And, until we experience a genuine belonging, we're going to try to fit in. We have to. It's our nature. We're not isolated beings. We exist in relationship. We exist in belongingness. So if we don't experience that on a substantial level, then we will do whatever it takes to feel that we belong, and that that will look like fitting in the beginning. We will do whatever it takes to fit in because we need to feel that we belong. And once we have an experience of belonging, then the need to fit in, it's just not there. It's just not there.
Wow. Well, thanks. I wasn't expecting to really to go into that, but yeah, it was not. It was nice to be able to to share that.
Well, thank you for inviting us in. And I think we'll use this as an opportunity to take a pause and to consider what transpired here.
Take a moment to view yourself and others, not just as you are now, but as you might become at your very best. Imagine embodying an attitude of love that shapes all your thoughts and actions. How might this perspective transform your relationships? Focus on one person in your life and reflect on how this relationship could change if guided by love's highest potential. What single step can you take today to support this transformation? Pause to consider your spiritual goal. How does it relate to your spiritual practice? Are your current practices temporary means to an end? Or do they align with an eternal path of growth? If they feel disconnected, explore why this might be and consider adopting a lifestyle that sustains your journey now while remaining open to continual evolution.